Alright, so we're looking at solving rational equations. We have x divided by 2x squared minus negative x minus 3 divided by 8x equals 4 divided by 4x squared. That is a 2. So 4 divided by 4x squared. The first thing that we want to do is to find a common denominator so that we can work with all the pieces at the same time. So finding the common denominator, we can look at all the coefficients first. We're looking for the smallest number that all of our values can go into. So what is the smallest number you can think of that is divisible by 2, by 4, and by 8? And the smallest number actually is 8, right? 8 divided by 8 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So all these numbers will go into 8, so 8 is our common denominator. Now looking at our variables, we're looking at the variable that has the biggest exponent. So I have x squared, I have x, and then again I have x squared. So I need the most, so I'll take x squared. So 8x squared is our common denominator. And now using that to fix all of our other values. So my first fraction, I have 2x squared for the denominator. I need 8x squared. So what do I multiply 2x squared by? That gives me 8x squared, and it should be 4. So I need to multiply the numerator and the denominator of my first fraction by 4. So 4 times x gives me 4x, and 4 times 2x squared does give me 8x squared like we wanted, minus. Now looking at the second fraction, right, subtraction, because that's what the problem says. Looking at my second fraction, again, I have 8x, and I need 8x squared. So what do I multiply 8x by? That gives me 8x squared, and it should be x. So I'm going to multiply everything in the top of this fraction by x. So negative x times x gives me negative x squared, and negative 3 times x gives me negative 3x, and 8x divided by x gives me 8x squared, again like we needed. Now for the last fraction, same thing, I have 4x squared. What do I multiply 4x squared by? That gives me 8x squared, and it should be 2. So I'll multiply the top by 2 and get 8, multiply the bottom by 2 and get 8x squared. So now I have my common denominator. Once we have a common denominator, one method is to just kind of disregard the bottom for a minute and just look at the tops. So I have 4x minus this whole thing. Be careful with your subtraction. I'm going to put it in parentheses so I don't mess up any negatives. Equals 8. So now looking at this, I have some things to simplify and some rearranging to do, but now I have a quadratic. If I solve the quadratic, this will give me the solutions to my rational equation. So using any technique that you'd like to solve the quadratic equation, you can complete the square, you can do quadratic formula, you can factor, anything like that. So we'll go ahead and clean this up. I'm going to distribute my negative. So my 4x remains, and then negative times a negative gives me positive x squared, and a negative times a negative gives me positive 3x equals 8. And whatever method I choose to solve this quadratic, I need to move everything to one side and combine some like terms. So 4x plus 3x, those are like terms, gives me 7x, so I have x squared plus 7x. And I'll go ahead and subtract 8 from both sides so that I have all of my values, all of my terms on the same side of the equal sign. And now I can determine however I want to solve this. I'm going to go ahead and factor it since it is factorable. What do I multiply together? It gives me negative 8. When I add it, I get positive 7, and that is positive 8 and negative 1. So I have x plus 8 times x minus 1 equals 0. And setting each factor equal to 0. And solving, let me scoop that up for you. Solving, I get x equals negative 8 and x equals positive 1. And there's my solution. Okay, now this step right here, we identified this was a quadratic, so we solved it in a certain manner, the way we solve quadratics. It does not necessarily have to be a quadratic every time. Sometimes it'll be linear. Sometimes you might even get a cubic, something like that. So from this step on, the way you solve it depends on what function you're left with from your numerator. All right, if y'all have questions, of course, harass me. Have a good day. Bye.